So, out spearfishing for the first time in just about 4 weeks actually. I was away on holiday for 3 weeks. I was road tripping around Europe. I went to Croatia. I didn't bring my spear gun, but I brought my fins and my mask. Jumped in a place called Umag. Nothing crazy, just like, you know, a shore dive. But saw some fish. I'll put that clip up just now. So as I said, this clip was from a place called Umag in Croatia, and I didn't take my spear gun just because I wasn't exactly sure where I was going to be, and also just kind of what the regulations are with traveling with a spear gun and spearfishing in different areas and stuff. But it was definitely still worthwhile hopping in. I saw a sea buoy about 500 meters out, so just kind of swam to that. It wasn't deep at all. This was about 7 or 8 meters, and yeah, plenty of life about. The first day that I was out, I didn't actually have my GoPro, and there was lots of different species about. The second day, which is this clip here, not quite so many species about, but still plenty of life. So yeah, it was definitely worthwhile doing. And came back from holiday and my new polosub wetsuit has arrived. Which is good because I have been freezing my ass off so far this season. I lost about 4 kilos or so, just got a little bit leaner over the kind of winter period, and yeah, I could just really feel it in my previous wetsuit. I'd had that wetsuit for like 3 years, so it's time for a new one anyway, plus being a little bit lighter. It wasn't good. So yeah, 7mm wetsuit from polosub, should be fine and warm. Like took about 6 weeks to arrive, so not too long at all. So yeah, looking forward to it. So I'm on the Moray coast just now. I've been at this spot a good few times before. We've got a pretty steep walk down to Snow to get to where we're at, but it's workable. I've done it a few times before, but you just got to be careful. So yeah, let's see how we get on. I'm just, like I say, I haven't really done any serious diving for like 4 weeks. So I'm really just going to kind of be getting a feel for it again today. Hopefully we'll get some fish, but really just want to practice my diving, get some decent dives in, see how I'm feeling, see how my wetsuit feels, and hopefully pick up a pollock or a coalfish and have that for dinner tonight. So hopefully you enjoy the video. So the plan for this dive is to swim to the end of the bay, turn left, and swim about kind of 500 meters along the kind of cliffs. Lots of big kind of rock structure on the bottom, plenty of kelp, and I've shot quite a few good fish there previously. As I swim out, you can see here the conditions deteriorate pretty quickly. A cloud comes in, wind picks up, rain starts thrashing down, and a fair bit of surface chop. So yeah, I mean, still workable, but yeah, the sun certainly disappeared pretty quick. Like, so this is the first dive of the day here, and my strategy when I'm diving is I'll usually give kind of each area that looks like it should be holding fish about kind of 2 or 3 dives with about a minute at the bottom, and if I'm not seeing any shootable fish in those few dives, I'll just kind of move on a little bit. You know, there's plenty of bait fish around here, but I gave this spot a few dives, didn't see anything, and just moved on. Because, you know, there's an unlimited amount of ground that you can cover in a session, and there's only so many dives that you can do per session before you just get too fatigued. So I find it kind of just increases your chance of success. Kind of keep gradually moving until you come across shootable fish, as opposed to just continuously diving in an area where you're not seeing anything. So as I come to the surface here, you can see that the conditions really are not the best. Quite a lot of surface chop, to the point where it was really difficult to get a breathe up because water kept crashing into my snorkel. So yeah, at this point I'm kind of thinking, right, I'm really up against it here. I don't know how the rest of this session is going to go, but persevere with the hope of getting something. So from the surface here on this dive, I can see what looks like a kelp bed with like a drop off, and anytime I see that, I'll dive onto it because I've had quite a bit of success there. So you can just see here, drop off coming off the side of the kelp bed, and just kind of hang off the bottom of where the kelp is. Now there's actually another huge rock structure just next to me, so there's a bit of a gully going between here, you can see that. Any sort of gullies like that, you'll quite often find fish hanging about that area. So I just kind of wait, see a pollock coming in. This is a shootable fish, but nothing massive. and then just behind it I can see a bigger fish coming in. It doesn't actually look bigger because it's further away, visibility is pretty poor, but so I just kind of hold steady. Now this fish is a fair bit below me, so I'm actually shooting down onto it, but managed to secure a pretty reasonable shot, and yeah, I was pretty happy with that. Getting anything on the spear in those conditions, I was pretty happy with that, to be honest. I wasn't really sure what size this fish was because it was a reasonable distance on the shot, and the visibility was quite poor, but it actually ended up being 5 pounds, which is a not bad size for this area, to be honest. So yeah, I was really happy with that. Starting to calm down a little bit, but this swell, oh me, just trying to get a breathe up and actually get your breath when you're just getting thrashed about. But we've got a reasonable pollock. So I drop onto this exact same area again. I've quite often found that, you know, you'll be able to kind of get a few opportunities in the same spot before the pollock will kind of eventually figure out, right, it's not a good idea to be here. But it's not like as soon as you take one shot, everything's going to disappear. Certainly not with pollock anyway. So yeah, I dropped down, but to be honest, I was too high. I can see in this clip the fish are way below me here, but just with the kind of surface chop and the conditions, I was struggling to get right down because the bottom of that gully was probably like 18 meters or so. So yeah, I just decided to move on to somewhere slightly shallower. So I dropped down here to about 14 meters, a kind of rocky bottom with a bit of kelp. As soon as I hit the bottom, I see some decent looking pollock coming in. So just to the right here. So straight away I can tell that this is a decent sized pollock with a slightly bigger one following it. So I just kind of ignore the one on the left, focus on the one on the right here. But as it starts coming in, just senses my presence there, heads off a little bit. So I'm kind of starting to follow this pollock here. And I was thinking about taking the shot, but it was fairly pushing it in terms of the range. It's an 85 centimeter gun that I've got here, and I probably could have taken the shot and I might have landed it. But the absolute worst thing for me about spearfishing is, you know, taking a shot on a fish, hitting it, and then watching it swim off. So I just decided against it there. So I drop into the same area again, seeing if I can come across those pollock again. Now, looking at this clip here, this is actually one of the good things about using a GoPro to film yourself, is you can watch it back and kind of look at things you can improve. And my head movement is just way too erratic here. You know, that's something that I definitely need to work on, because, you know, I've noticed that when I'm moving my head, that's when the fish are kind of, you know, changing direction slightly. So that's definitely something that I need to work on. It's just been a little bit more composed with my head movement. I can see a fish coming in here, but it turns out not being really kind of very big at all. Over minimum size definitely, but I was kind of holding out for something a little bit bigger. So I drop into a slightly different area here, and there's a few pollock kicking about, but again, all reasonably small. And because I've already got a reasonable fish this dive, at this point I'm just kind of holding out for something a little bit bigger. Now, if I hadn't shot that pollock previously, I definitely would have been taking a shot at one of these fish. You know, if I'm wanting fish for dinner and there's a fish that's over minimum size in front of me, I'll definitely be taking the shot. I'm not like only going to kind of hold out for absolutely massive fish. Of course, it's great to kind of shoot an 8-pound pollock or whatever, but, you know, equally, if I'm going out for a dive, my main goal is to bring back some food. So I'm heading back into the bay now. Now this is just kind of at the corner of the bay. I know this spot's around about kind of 16 to 18 meters. I've shot a few good fish here before. So I dropped down. By this point in the session, I'm actually kind of pretty much done, like, so it's quite tough getting down here. But drop down, tuck myself into the rocks, and just kind of see if anything comes in. A few wrasse kicking about. I'm not against shooting wrasse. I don't shoot them that often. They are good for ceviche, but it just takes a fair bit of preparation. But yeah, definitely not against shooting them, but just tend not to that often, to be honest. So I kind of wait at the bottom here, but don't really see anything coming in. I watch this fish coming in, but it ends up being another wrasse. So I drop down into the same area again here. So just dropping down, and like I say, this is kind of pretty much the end of the session here, and I am kind of feeling the fatigue levels kicking in quite a bit. And you can see I kind of check my watch just as I come to the bottom, because I'm like, how deep is this? Like, because it just felt like I was going down forever. So I'm thinking, right, I'm done, I'm heading back up. But as soon as I get to the bottom, I just see a reasonable looking pollock come across, so I just take my time, line up the shot. It's quite a far shot, to be honest, and it's a low shot. As soon as I hit the fish, I can tell that it's low, so I'm just kind of gentle in coming back up. I'm not going to try and rip it up as quick as possible, because I'd probably lose it. So yeah, if the shot placement isn't ideal, just really kind of take your time bringing it up, because if you do force it too quick, you'll probably lose it. So as I'm swimming back into the bay, I had a cool encounter here. Seal comes in with a pollock in its mouth, showing me how it's done. Drops the half-eaten pollock to check me out, checks out my fins, notices that the pollock is swimming away, trying to escape, bolts after it, grabs it, and then comes back to check me out again. So yeah, that was a pretty cool encounter there. So on my float, I've got backpack straps so that I can put everything on my back, and I've got a dry bag inside a dry bag. So what I normally do is gut and scale the fish in the sea, put them in the dry bag, and then put that dry bag into my main dry bag along with my fins. And it just kind of helps me carry everything out on my back without it just turning into a complete mess. So because I ended up having a pretty good session, I decided to go back the next day. And you can see here the visibility in the bay is always really good, but further out it's usually nowhere near as good. But nice to see the visibility like that in the bay. And as you can see here, much nicer conditions. Nice flat calm water, blue skies, so hoping for another good dive. So most of the diving that I'll do is just aspeto diving, dropping to the bottom, a few grunts in the back of the throat, and just waiting to see if anything comes in. And you know, quite often you'll see the smaller pollock come in first, and then, you know, after about kind of 45 seconds, that's when you'll quite often see the slightly bigger fish come in. So you just kind of need to give it a little bit of bottom time and just kind of be patient. Now, after about a minute, if you're not seeing anything, I generally just kind of call it quits. I don't kind of push my breath hold to the limit every dive, because it's just a waste of energy. I only kind of, you know, push it that little bit more if I can actually see decent fish coming in, and I'm kind of waiting to get a shot opportunity. I'll usually average about 15 dives an hour, 1 minute down, 3 minutes up, and just kind of keep that pace up, and just kind of keep diving and keep moving until I come across a spot that looks like it's got more kind of decent fish in it. But no decent fish in this area. So one thing that I'm always trying to work on with my diving is my duck dive and just making it as smooth as possible. So I'm always trying to make sure that my fins are completely under the water before I start kicking, to cause as little disturbance on the water surface as possible. And then that can kind of lead to dives like this, where as soon as you hit the bottom, you've kind of got fish already there. Now, I was a little bit hesitant in taking that shot because I wasn't sure about the size of the fish, but it ended up being just over 3 pounds. But yeah, I think that's an example of why having a decent duck dive is important. Now, my duck dive is definitely not perfect; it can always be improved, but it's something that I do work on. And I think if you're thrashing about on the surface, making a heap of noise and ruckus as you duck dive, obviously that's going to reduce the chances of fish being there when you hit the bottom. So just hopped out the water for a few minutes. So decided to, rather than do what I did yesterday, which was kind of swim
round the other side to the west. I'm kind of going east today, which is with the current, which is much easier swimming this way, but it's going to be harder swimming back, so I need to kind of be careful with that. That's, you know, you need to think about the currents when you're in the water, and think about what state you're going to be in when you're swimming against them. Swimming against them when you're going out is fine, because once you get tired, swim with them on the way back. What I'm doing just now is swimming with them as I'm diving, but I'm going to need to swim against them coming back, so I just need to be aware of that. And here, there's no way out apart from where I came in. So yeah, you just got to, whenever you're shore diving, which is basically all that I do, you need to think about your entry and exit points, and think about how the tide is going to affect that. You don't want to get in the water at high tide and then come to get back out at the same point and there's a 5-meter cliff that you can't get up. So yeah, you just need to think about that. But I'm going to go back into this little spot here. I think we'll get a few more fish maybe. That pollock that I just shot, a reasonable size fish. To be honest, I wasn't going to shoot it when I first saw it because I thought it was maybe a bit small, but it's actually probably about 3 pounds. So perfect eating size fish. So yeah, let's try and get a couple more. I'm not actually seeing any coalfish at all, which I usually do in this area. But yeah, absolutely stunning. Just look at this. So I mentioned there that I wasn't seeing any coalfish, but I actually see one here. A reasonable sized coalfish, but just way too far away. And moving pretty quick, so didn't get the chance at that. But if you do get a chance to shoot a coalfish, do so, because they are absolutely delicious. Similar to pollock, but just a little bit more oily. Tastes really good. So this dive here, I think, highlights the importance of kind of using structure to kind of camouflage you as much as possible. So I can see there's a huge rock here with some kelp on top. So as I kind of come in and grab this kelp, I'm pretty much standing upright here. Now this pollock, a reasonable sized pollock, not massive, but certainly shootable, comes in and line up a shot, safety's on. Now 99 times out of 100, when you miss a fish by the safety being on, you're not going to get another chance. But I do, and manage to secure that fish. And when you watch that clip back, I think just the only thing that the fish could have seen was my gun kind of sticking out the kelp, because I was using that rock to camouflage myself. So, you know, it's a fine line, because if you bury yourself too deep in the kelp, you're not going to have any shooting lines. But obviously if you're just sitting way above the kelp, the fish are never going to come in. But yeah, definitely use camouflage to your advantage when it's, you know, the opportunity is there. So this dive here, dropping to about 12 meters or so, and I would say this is probably the biggest fish I saw all weekend. So I tucked myself into the kelp. Nice sized looking pollock coming in, sees me. Now, you don't need to kind of rush. They'll quite often come back and give you a second look. So I line up, and yeah, I missed that. Just, yeah, no excuses there, just missed. Frustrating, because it was a nice looking fish, but that's the way it goes sometimes. Now, if you use a float line attached from your gun to your float, one thing I'd recommend is getting like a bungee line. So this is a Rob Allen 3-meter bungee line, which is attached to my regular line. And what that does is, if there's a heap of surface chop like there was yesterday, it means when you're at the bottom, regardless of what your float is doing on the surface, your gun isn't getting yanked about all over the place. And it's just been massively helpful for when there is a heap of surface chop. It just stops your gun getting yanked all over the place, which obviously leads to inaccuracies in the shooting. So that's something I definitely recommend. And this is one of the benefits of the Dive Art and Negra fins, is you just don't have to worry about them. You can just absolutely hammer them. You know, if you've got carbon or fiberglass fins and you're doing a lot of shore diving, you've got to be super careful with where you're kind of going in and out and rocks and stuff. Whereas these, you know, I've just kind of absolutely abused them, and as far as I'm concerned, they're just completely indestructible. So they are a fair investment, but definitely worth it if you're thinking about getting them. So hopefully you enjoyed that video. If you did, like and subscribe, and I will aim to get more videos up soon.